Garland, Texas, 2006. A man disappears into thin air.
When I looked in the window, there was nothing there.
Over $210,000 was taken.
A trail of evidence reveals a multitude of unspeakable crimes.
I hear somebody scream, body, body, we got a body. And just chills.
Everyone is talking.
You run into one of these cases that's so twisted and it takes you down so many paths.
I did not do this.
No two stories add up.
We're looking at murder right here.
Murder as in murder, like I can go with the death penalty? Murder?
All murderers are bad, but some are diabolical. The leafy bedroom community of Garland, Texas, lies a few miles east of Dallas. It's a place known as an escape from big city life. But there's nowhere truly safe from the evils of the world.
Detective Sweet, you're not going to believe this.
In the spring of 2008, detectives in Garland get a surprising call from Assistant District Attorney Josh Healy.
I've got a young lady down here who is confessing to the murder of Michael Giles. Okay, I'll see you soon.
Michael Giles is a Garland resident who's been missing for more than a year.
I've investigated these cases for a long time, and never had I had someone come in to give a confession like that.
Someone willing to go confess to a felony, to taking someone's life, that's huge. That's huge. The minute those calls come in, your mind is racing.
Detectives rush to the Dallas County Courthouse, where they sit face-to-face with 19-year-old Erica Flores.
The moment we sat down, I thought, oh, God.
Hi, I'm Detective Sweet. This is my partner, Detective McNear. Let's start from the beginning.
Erica's story begins more than a year earlier, when she and two accomplices were involved in a robbery gone horribly wrong.
Please, stop! No!
What kind of a gun did you use?
I used a 9mm.
Gave us details about a case that only the killer would know. She's got every detail that we know right.
Erica's confession should be welcome news. But detectives have a problem. They've already charged someone else with the murder of Michael Giles.
At a certain point in your career, you think you've seen everything, then you run into one of these cases that's so twisted and it takes you down so many paths. We have a saying we use sometimes is, you just can't make this stuff up.
It's kind of a joke around the office that if anything can go bad, go wrong, go south, it's going to happen Friday around 3 or 4 o'clock.
And the case that comes up on this Friday afternoon is truly out of the ordinary.
My supervisor comes in and he asks if anyone would like to go out and talk to 2 investigators. Veterans Affairs Bureau were in the lobby. And obviously, close to quitting time, you could hear crickets chirping in there. And so we volunteered.
How may I help you?
We have a possible missing persons case in Garland.
The Veteran Affairs investigators are looking for an Air Force retiree named Michael Giles.
They told us that this person had been very, very faithful, making payments on his VA loans and had never been late, and then just about a year ago completely stopped making payments.
The VA investigators have also learned that Michael Giles's house has been rented out.
An individual by the name of Robert Austin was renting the house.
Austin volunteers to assist investigators. He tells them he's legally rented the house for more than 7 months.
Let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Tell me the whole kit and caboodle.
September
Our lease was up, looking for another one. Ran across that one in the paper for $9.95 a month.
That's a nice little house.
That's a great neighborhood, too.
And it turns out Mr. Austin is familiar with the name Michael Giles.
In our mailbox, we got a 2-inch thick stack of mail. And it was all addressed to Michael A. Giles. Your normal, average bills.
He tells investigators that his landlord is a woman.
The name she gave you.
Juanetta Harris.
The arrangement Robert and Miss Harris had was for him to send the rent check to a realty company. But after a few months, he received an unsettling piece of mail.
He had received a letter from a lady by the name of Tracy Knight.
She told me that Juanetta Harris died in a car wreck on her way to church was hit head on.
Juanetta had an accident and was killed, and that Tracy inherited the house from her.
Detectives reach out to Michael's family. They're shocked to learn that his mortgage is now in default.
I know my brother and Michael paid his house payment double. He was trying to pay his house off in 15 years so that he could just bank all of his money. So that was not like him not to pay his house payment.
The man that is leasing Michael's house says that he leased it from a Juanetta Harris and that she later died in a car accident. Did he ever mention this to you?
No.
They've never heard of Juanetta Harris or Tracy Knight. And as far as they know, Michael has been traveling.
I hadn't seen him since July of 2006. However, I had been corresponding with him by email and text messages. He traveled all over the world during that time. Mike was the youngest boy. I was the oldest girl. We were very close, very close. I wanted to be just like him. When Michael joined the military, his sole basis was to travel and to get his education, which he did it all. He did 20 years in the military.
It was his first love, and I think that took precedence over just about anything and everything in his life.
He retired in 1998. Michael was happy. He had his own house. He had it going on. I mean, as long as he had a full bank account, he was good, you know.
Detectives need to dig deeper into Michael's past.
We ran Michael Giles' address through our computer systems, and we had found a call several months earlier.
911, what's your emergency?
The next door neighbor called in and said that someone is loading furniture at night and it's just suspicious.
Excuse me. Hi, what's going on here?
Before the officers got there, a lady had come out of the house.
Oh, hi. I'm just the new owner of the house. Oh, just selling some of my old furniture.
Oh, I didn't even know this house was for sale.
Yeah.
So the neighbor was satisfied with that, and once the officers arrived, told them, hey, this is a false alarm.
Now, a year later, Michael is missing. This makes the incident much more suspicious, especially after official records reveal Michael Giles never sold his house. They need to answer two questions. Who was the woman living in his house? And who are the men who carted away the furniture?
And lucky for us, when the next door neighbor had called, she gave a license plate number of the truck that was over there loading the furniture. We were able to run that tag and find out that it belonged to a guy by the name of Francisco Vicuna in an address in Garland.
Francisco Vicuna works for a local lawn care company. Through an interpreter, he tells his story.
Francisco was doing some work behind the house when he was approached by someone that asked him if he would be interested in buying some furniture.
He said there's a lot of very nice furniture and that she sold them all the furniture in the house for $300.
Hey, if you or anyone in your crew wants to make a few extra dollars, I have a job I need done in the back.
Yeah, maybe. What's the job?
and she said she needed somebody to dig a hole for her.
Francisco's son accepts the job.
Francisco Jr. was a very polite kid and told us the story. He said the hole had very specific instructions. It was to be 4 feet deep, 6 feet long, and he even joked, I wonder whose grave I'm digging.
The next day, Francisco Jr. shows detectives the exact spot in Michael Giles's backyard.
We went out there and peeked over the fence, and there's this oddly placed piece of concrete.
It was in an area on the house that it just didn't make sense to pour a slab there. It wasn't connected to a patio, it was just in a random spot, and it just doesn't look right.
Once you see it, it kind of confirms this doesn't make sense. That was a, wow, this is crazy. This is going to be crazy. Detective Sweet and I looked at each other and said, there may be a body buried in this backyard.
What lies beneath the concrete slab in Michael Giles's backyard?
Where y'all going with this? No.
Digging for the truth will unearth a twisted conspiracy. More suspects at every turn.
She said you cry a little bit better.
It was like the spider that won't die. I mean, you can stop it, stop it, stop it. And it keeps getting up and running away.
In October 2007, detectives in Garland, Texas are called in to investigate the mysterious disappearance of Michael Giles. The discovery of a new concrete slab in his backyard has them fearing the worst.
Very poorly poured piece of concrete, like somebody had hand done it, and just chills. Just chills. I mean, you're sitting there staring, thinking it's probably a man's tomb.
If I think that's a body under there, yeah, it's time to go to work.
Detectives give Michael's family a heads up that their fears may come true.
The police wanting to investigate. You just knew that it wasn't a good thing. Plain and simple. Couldn't be.
"15 months earlier, Michael's family prepares their annual 4th of July barbecue. It's a holiday everyone looks forward to. But this year, there will be a last-minute change of plans.
Oh, it's Michael. Hey, Michael. Happy 4th. I was just wondering when you were going to get over here.
He said he was not coming over because he was cooking at home that day.
You're not coming? Well, that's too bad.
And so we cooked, and the family came over, and Mike was missed. And then I tried to call him later, but I didn't get an answer that day.
Hi, Michael. Where the heck are you? This is your sister. Do you remember me? Call me.
When he didn't show up for the 4th of July, that was a major flag, because he just didn't miss functions like that. After 20 years of the military, he'd already missed too many of them.
A full week passes with no explanation. Then, a second.
I had tried to call Mike a couple of times and kept leaving messages.
Something just wasn't right. We'd just drive over and go and find out.
Doesn't look like anyone's watered the grass in a while.
No.
We went around to the front, and there was a sign in the window with Michael's cell phone number on it that said house for lease.
The for lease sign is astonishing. It was his first house, and it was important to him. Mike loved it.
Inside the tasteful home is the biggest surprise of all.
When I looked in the window, there was nothing there. Everything was gone. There was no furniture, nothing. I had my cell phone, and I start trying to call him.
It's his voicemail. Michael, this is Gwen. We're at your house.
And then I got a text message from Michael's cell phone that said, "I'm okay, I just need some time away."
Where do you suppose he went?
You know Michael. Could be anywhere.
Michael was a very private person. After he moved home, he still traveled to other places where he had friends. Shortly after he bought his house, he started dating a girl that we met that lived in New Mexico.
We'd only heard of a couple of girls' names, and even then you had to pull the information out of Mike. He was a very private guy.
Michael's family decides to give him space.
I would send a message and say, hey, you need to call Mama. She's worried about you. He'd say, I'll call in a few days, and we never heard from him.
After months of sporadic communication, Gwen believes she gets the explanation she's been waiting for.
I was home on a Saturday. My cell phone started ringing, and it was Michael's number calling me. It was a lady calling that was on a cruise. And she said that Michael and his beautiful bride had dropped his phone when they were getting off the boat. She wanted us to let him know that she was going to turn it into the steward on the ship. So I called my sister and I said, girl, this boy done ran off and got married. I did get rather upset that he didn't tell us. I was very irritated that I hadn't heard from him.
A year after that final phone call, Garland police reach out to speak to Michael's family. With all signs suggesting the worst, Detectives Sweet and McNear urge them to launch a formal missing persons inquiry.
Once the family of Michael Giles files the missing person report, it gives the Garland police detectives subpoena power. Go look at some bank accounts, go look at some phone records, computer records, things like that.
And it's his financial records that prove revealing. Michael's accounts are being drained by a familiar name.
Most of his money was going out in Detroit, Michigan. It was all going out under the name of Quanetta Harris.
She's the same woman who rented out his house to Robert Austin.
She told me that Juanita Harris died in a car wreck.
All this money is coming out of his accounts in large chunks.
It seems like Quanetta Harris is alive, and she's a long way from Texas.
And so obviously Quanetta Harris is a person that we want to talk to and find out what's going on with her.
And how does this super responsible person, how do they just disappear?
A warrant is issued to excavate the slab behind Michael's house. Meanwhile, Detective Sweet travels to Detroit to track down Quanetta Harris. The crime scene unit begins excavating the concrete slab. It's a slow, methodical process.
Detective Sweet called me, and he said he wanted to let me know because it would probably be all over the news. Me and my husband, Ron, and my sister, we all went out and were in the backyard, standing in the hot sun with helicopters flying all over in the tent. I really was hoping and praying that he wasn't there. But in my heart, I knew.
In Detroit, Detective Sweet has eyes on Quanetta Harris, and he's ready to pounce.
I drew the warrant up, so if we did find a body, I could get the judge to sign it and immediately hit Gary and tell him, sack her up, sack her up.
Hey, what's going on? What do you got?
We're watching the house. I'm in constant contact with my partner back in Garland, who is overseeing the digging. It's going very slowly. We're getting a little bit antsy, afraid she's going to try to leave, and we can't get a warrant signed for her until we get a body.
As Detective Sweet watches Quanetta's house, his stakeout may suddenly become a pursuit.
Quanetta Harris comes out the front door.
Oh, she's leaving.
I needed a body to get a warrant signed. He needed my warrant signed to snatch her. She's going mobile, and he's calling me going, dude, she's walking out. I'm like, we don't have a body, dude. I can't get a warrant for you.
So have to make a decision.
Listen, I'll call you back.
I chose to approach her.
Quanetta Harris?
Yes.
And that's when it gets weird.
No, where y'all going with this?
I hope we haven't screwed this up.
In the fall of 2007, investigators are in a race against time as a forensics team in Dallas excavates Michael Giles' presumed grave. In Detroit, the prime suspect, Quinetta Harris, is about to slip through their fingertips.
I needed a body to get a warrant signed. He needed my warrant signed to snatch her.
My partner's telling me that he feels they're very close to uncovering a body, and Quinetta Harris comes out the front door. So, have to make a decision. I chose to approach her.
Listen, I'll call you back. Quinetta Harris?
Yes.
Hi.
I went up to her and told her who I was, and I basically questioned her about Michael Giles being a missing person.
Michael's missing? Oh no, that's horrible.
Trying to keep her busy, just asking her routine, normal questions as you would ask anyone on a missing person case. And she acted very concerned.
Michael is a dear friend of mine.
She had a lot of the right things to say that a person would say in that situation.
As Detective Sweet continues to stall, the Garland team is still empty-handed.
I was a bit more concerned as it drug on. You're just kind of held captive of waiting, watching the dirt fly by crumb by crumb, and hoping Gary's not in a gunfight or something going on up there with her. It's a pretty stressful situation.
Then, when they reach 20 inches down, everything changes.
Detective, we got a body.
Finally, I hear somebody scream, "Body, body, we got a body."
Give me 1 second, please.
Hey, Gary. Yeah. We got a body.
I'm telling Gary, snatch her up. We've got a warrant. We've got a body. Get her, get her, get her.
Great. Thank you very much.
Instead of arresting her on the spot, I asked her if she would come down to the police station.
I don't know. I'm on my way to an appointment.
I told her that once we get all this information, I won't have to bother you anymore. And she immediately, like, okay, let's go.
1,100 miles south in Garland, Texas, investigators unearth the remains of Michael Giles.
Mr. Giles was wrapped up in a blanket there in the grave. He was executed by a 9mm handgun. It was determined he was shot point blank in the head.
Next to Michael's body, they find a pillow from a sofa.
The pillow that we found had a hole in it. We ran a trajectory rod through it, and it went all the way through, and it appeared that someone had shot through that pillow.
We were there the entire day, from about 7 o'clock in the morning until they found him at 3 o'clock. We saw the coroner's van pull up, and I knew that they had found him. After that, I had to go and get my mother because she was still home. She didn't know any of this. I had not told her. I couldn't tell her until I knew.
Michael was a law-abiding citizen that always did the right thing his whole entire life. And for somebody to kill him was unthinkable.
Still goes through my head to this day. Whether he was in the house the day that we went over there, and I feel like he was. He was there the whole time. That was the hardest day of my life. Hardest day of my life.
This is Detective Sweet with the Garland Police Department. We're in Detroit, Michigan, October the 19th, 2007. And your name?
Quinetta Harris.
My impression of her when the initial interview starts, she's fairly comfortable. And she didn't know that we had found Michael's body.
What can you tell me about Michael? You understand he's missing?
Yeah.
You're very close friends.
He was my husband's supervisor.
I asked her routine questions, and she seemed pretty comfortable answering the questions.
Quinetta tells Detective Sweet that she first met Michael over a decade earlier and an ocean away.
Michael was stationed in England for, I believe, a couple of years.
Mr. Giles served in the military. Quinetta Harris was married to someone in the military. And for a period, they lived next door to each other.
They were having a little bit of marital problems, and the husband basically kicked her out.
I believe, from what I've learned, is that she needed a place to live, and Michael offered to let her sleep in his extra room.
She's a quiet person. She look real innocent. She have an innocent face.
The relationship is platonic, and Michael proves himself a reliable friend.
And I think Michael probably helped her out financially from time to time.
She always talking about money. She needed money to take care of her kids and her mom, because her mom is real old.
In 1996, a newly divorced Quinetta Harris returns to her hometown of Detroit, where she pursues a career in nursing. She also waits for the day when she can reconnect with Michael Giles.
Years later, she had reached out to Michael, and they had began to communicate.
So when Michael Giles finished overseas, his military background, he moved back to Garland, Texas. Quinetta Harris and Michael Giles sparked up a relationship, and that's where this story got started.
A storybook romance plays out over long distance, one they agree to keep quiet.
I was like, who is Michael Giles? Have no idea who they was. She said her boyfriend.
I wasn't aware of Quinetta Harris at all until they told us about her. I'd never met her. Michael never, ever brought her around us. I didn't know anything about her.
We have information that you were leasing his house to someone.
Right.
Did you take care of his financial things?
I had a financial power of attorney.
I can tell it bothered her to bring this up.
Who is Tracy Knight? Is that you? Are you using that name or what?
My name is Quinetta Harris. My married last name is Knight. And my nickname is Tracy.
The name Tracy Knight connects Quinetta to the strange letter received by the tenant, Robert Austin.
When I got to the Vicuna family, she got uncomfortable, and I could tell her stress level went way up.
You didn't hire some Hispanic guys to come take all the furniture out of the house?
No.
You were just to clear it out? You didn't hire some people? You don't remember doing that?
No, I didn't hire.
Young man identified you, saying that you had him dig a hole in the backyard. Can some of the specifics...
No! Where y'all going with this?
Well,
no.
I'm just curious. The Hispanic individuals, that puzzles me a little bit because several of them picked you out of a lineup.
No, I don't know any Hispanic.
Things started really getting interesting when I told her about that concrete slab.
What bothers me about all this is we had this kid come back out to the house, and he pointed where the concrete slab is. And said that's where you had him dig the hole.
I see what you're saying.
I mean, it's...
I can see what you're saying or whatever, but at the same time, I'm sitting there thinking, I ain't never hired no kid to dig no holes.
Let me just get to the point and quit beating around the bush with the whole thing. We had the concrete slab torn up, and Michael's not missing it. You're in a lot of trouble. We're looking at murder right here.
You trying to charge me with murder? Murder as in murder, like I can go to the death penalty? Murder?
It could be. I guess it could be a capital murder.
May I call my attorney?
We're now terminating the
She is arrested and charged with the murder of Michael Giles. They served a subpoena at her house in Detroit and got all her computers and phones.
The search history on Quinetta's computer paints a vivid picture.
One being how to remove blood off a couch. One being how to skip town after murdering someone. One being what to do with a body.
Most critical of all are Quinetta's extensive financial records.
We find quite a bit of paperwork, bank records with Quinetta's name and Michael Giles' name on them.
She had a notebook with all of Mr. Giles' usernames, all of Mr. Giles' passwords, his pensions, his 401ks. She had his life in a book that she was controlling as him.
We determined that over $210,000 was taken from Michael Giles and put in control of Quinetta Harris.
And then detectives discover a power of attorney signed by Michael Giles himself, dated months after his murder is believed to have taken place.
Michael Giles was not alive, so we were curious who signed this.
Mr. Giles would have to be present to sign the paperwork.
This revealing fact suggests that there is even more to Quinetta than meets the eye.
There's no end to her evil game that she'll carry out.
But the evidence also suggests she may not have acted alone.
He was not buying it. And they were like, tell me what's going on.
How's that?
Detectives in Garland, Texas suspect that Quinetta Harris murdered Michael Giles and made off with just about everything he owned.
We were looking more into the financial records and the bank records and finding out where a lot of this money had gone to. Quite a bit of money had been given out. And our task was to find out, how did she get on his accounts? How did this happen?
The key to unlocking this mystery may lie in documents purportedly signed by Michael Giles after his murder and in the presence of witnesses.
Did you take care of his financial things?
I had a financial power of attorney.
So one of our tasks was to find out who actually signed this paper and what identification did they present to prove who they were.
Detectives suspect that Quinetta had help. They take a look at anyone that she wired Michael's money to.
We learned that a guy by the name of DeAndre Knight did receive some of the money. DeAndre Knight was Quinetta Harris's boyfriend.
When detectives take DeAndre Knight into custody, he spills his guts.
I've had some crazy cases, but this particular one, it just keeps having twists and turns in it.
DeAndre claims Quinetta came up with a plan for getting official financial documents signed.
They explained to her that Mr. Giles would have to be present to sign the paperwork.
So she explains that Michael has had a stroke and that he can't travel.
Quinetta schedules an appointment for a financial executive to come to her home to bear witness to Michael signing the documents.
In the living room, there's a hospital bed with Michael Giles laying in the bed.
Hey, Michael. Baby, how you feeling?
He can't speak, but he is able to sign the papers.
How's that?
That was okay. But I need you to be more irritable. Squint your eyes, groggy. We need to get this right. Let's try it again.
DeAndre Knight looked a little bit like Michael. It wouldn't have been totally out of the realm of possibility to have a driver's license and look at him and believe he could have been Michael Giles.
Detectives believe that with DeAndre's story, they've established a clear motive for the murder of Michael Giles. As her trial approaches, Quinetta continues to maintain her innocence.
We felt we had enough evidence against her at that time. We were able to file a murder case on her and have her extradited back to Texas. Felt pretty confident with the case we had until we get that phone call about Erica Flores.
Who is Erica Flores? Her name is new to the investigation. Detectives wonder how they could have missed something this big.
I'm here to confess to a murder.
When we got that story from Erica, we realized now we've really got this is crazy. My greatest fear in doing this job has always been not someone getting away with a crime, but putting the wrong person in jail for something they didn't do. That's my biggest fear. Just looking at her and reading her the best I can, she's very, very meek.
Okay, well, let's take it from the beginning.
It happened about a year ago. Me and some friends were driving around looking for someone to rob.
Erica never mentions Quinetta Harris. Instead, she implicates two men already interviewed by police, members of the Vicuña family.
We saw this guy. We followed him back to his house.
whoa, all right. She has some facts, and she has some facts that only the killer would have known.
Then I wrapped him in a red blanket and buried him in the backyard.
I just had to keep questioning her about it to be comfortable with it, and she was nailing it pretty good then. And I asked her to describe the Vicuna family.
Well, at the time, he was about 19.
Mm-hmm. And the other guy?
He was about the same age.
I said, he's 58. And her face dropped, like, you got me.
He wasn't buying it because he was like, it's not true. I don't believe her, he was saying. And they were like, you didn't do this, so go ahead and tell me what's going on. And that's when I got to explaining. I met some lady earlier today. She told me to come in here to read you this script, but I did not do this.
Detectives take Erica down to the Garland Police Department, where she tells them an incredible story.
From the beginning, how did you first get started with this situation?
A lady called me the day before yesterday.
Oh, the day before yesterday, a lady called you.
And she said she received a resume. And I've been hired for information and investigator.
Erica tells us that she had been looking for a job, and she had received a phone call from a lady wanting to interview her for a job. She says, I could tell the lady was wearing a wig, but she says, I didn't think much about it. She said she was African-American, and she said she spoke with a Jamaican accent. Did you put a circle around it and sign your name to it?
A new suspect has emerged.
I'm like, this is not real. I'm thinking like, this is not happening to me.
I do this all the time, so there's no reason to worry.
She said if you cry, it'll be better.
The person that's underneath is a chilling, cold, calculated, ice through her veins con artist.
Detectives in Garland, Texas can't believe their ears. After confessing to the murder of Michael Giles, 19-year-old Erica Flores now says she was set up to take the fall, and she's ready to explain.
I had a son, and he needed things, so I was in desperate need of a job. Filling the applications everywhere, calling, online, anything I could do.
One potential employer asks Erica to meet her near the courthouse.
When I saw her, she had a wig, I would say an older woman's wig on.
Hi, Erica.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for meeting me here.
Like I said over the phone, I am hiring investigators.
She made it seem real because she was talking about the benefits of the job, pay week, and everything like that.
What did she tell you the purpose of this was?
It's about the racism.
She stated, I have people going in every day acting like, they committed a crime just to see how the judicial system would treat them because they're African American.
The woman tells Erica her assignment. She's to confess to the murder of Michael Giles.
I do this all the time, so there's no reason to worry.
It will all be okay. You won't get in trouble. And Miss Flores took the bait.
She gave her a script and had her practice it.
I want to confess to a murder? No question. I want to confess to a murder. I want to confess to a murder.
Some things that I would be reading, she would say, on that part, kind of like pause.
It was a lot of things going through in my head. I was excited about getting the job, but after a while, I'm like, this is not real. I'm thinking like, this is not happening to me.
Did she ever tell you to cry or anything like that?
She said if you cry, it'll be better.
Now, the lady that you're saying that you talked to, is it any of these women here? Take your time. she immediately identified Quanetta Harris as the woman that she was talking to. And she said, I can recognize her even without the wig.
Did you put a circle around it and sign your name to it?
For engineering a false confession, authorities revoke Quinetta's bail and throw her back in jail. Quinetta's ex-boyfriend, DeAndre Knight, cuts a deal to testify against her. A week into her trial, Quinetta admits defeat.
She accepted responsibility and decided to sign and plead guilty.
Detectives believe that Michael's life was ended simply for greed.
I think she found Michael's notebook that contained all of his passwords to all of his bank accounts and all of his security questions, and temptation got the best of her. I believe she walked in, stuck a pillow over his head, and killed him while he was asleep. And I think she took that notebook and used that to get into everything she could get into and steal everything he had.
On the surface, Quanetta Harris is smart, articulate. She's a mom. The person that's underneath is a chilling, cold, calculated, ice through her veins con artist.
On October 12, 2009, Quinetta Harris is sentenced to 50 years in prison.
Michael spent 20 years of his life in the military for this country. He was a good guy, fun-loving guy, hard-working guy. Nobody deserves to go out the way he did.
I miss my brother. There's not one day that goes by that I don't miss him. If I had to say something to Quinetta Harris, I would say that I hope Mike's visiting her every night in her dreams. And I hope that she comes out of there in a body